And on this Sunday morning, not much introduction needed for our guest in studio, primarily because so much of such importance is going on in our state. He's the man in charge, and we want to get to talking about it. Governor Chris Sununu, thank you for joining us this morning on Close Up.
Great.
Let's start with the case of Harmony Montgomery, obviously the 7-year-old girl who's gone missing 2 years ago, her whereabouts still unknown. There's been a clamor for more transparency and information about what DCYF knows, what the government knows. You've been citing for a long time the confidentiality that surrounds juvenile cases, is saying you can't really talk about too much about it. But in this last week, you sent a letter to the court system in Massachusetts that did divulge quite a bit of information about sort of situations that had gone on there, the girl's father, Adam Montgomery, and also a custody that was awarded to him in Massachusetts, which you identify as a key problem in this situation. Why did you decide to make more information in this case public when initially you were saying you couldn't do that?
Well, everything in that letter, I think, pretty much was already made public in some way. And so what we've been doing is, first, we want Harmony home safe. And to do that, we need as much information as possible. We're doing an internal review at DCYF. And as part of that, we realized, look, the real impetus of the problem started when this judge made this absolute baffling decision to put this little girl in clearly harm's way with a monster, someone who was convicted of dangerous crimes and violent crimes, had just a rap sheet a mile long, why a judge would do that and start that process. And not only do that, but do it without an interstate compact, without allowing us to complete our home visit, without the normal checks and balances in place so that we can do our follow-up. So it really makes no sense there. We're going to keep doing our internal investigation, but most of the information in that letter had already been made public in some way. We were kind of putting all the dots together, if you will, and that's where it starts. We're going to keep digging on our end. We obviously, I think Governor Baker shares my concern. We've talked about it. And it isn't just about, it's not about casting blame. That's not what this is. This is about saying everyone has to put their cards on the table. Everyone has to say, here's the information we know on this case, because we want to bring her home safe and we want to learn. We want to make sure that these situations don't happen again on either side of the border with these kids that are in such vulnerable situations.
Certainly, though, there's a system issue when something like this arises.
Absolutely.
I'm just curious, you know, isn't it a problem that DCYF apparently obviously had no recourse once that custody is awarded, but at a certain point they just have to throw up their hands and kind of move on. There's so much work that they have to do normally. But then that problem, which they were so concerned about potentially, ends up in this kind of bureaucratic crevasse. Shouldn't there be a mechanism for them to be able to do something if they see that that custody is awarded and they are like, this is a red flag?
Absolutely. And that mechanism is the interstate compact agreements that come with most any child in that circumstance, which is why it was so baffling that the judge in DCF in Massachusetts didn't insist that accompany the child. That would have allowed a lot more transfer of information. In DCYF in this case, they didn't throw up their hands. They worked with the family. They had visited the family before. They had visited on a potential abuse case with Harmony at one point. So they were working without a doubt, but there was just such a limitation of information that could have been processed. And once a child is permanently placed, not part-time custody, full custody with this monster, once that happens, it really, to your point, does tie the hands a bit of the system in terms of what they can and can't do. So we're going to keep digging on our end. I know Massachusetts they're being a cooperative partner. We need the judicial system specifically to hopefully open up the case so we get more information. But it's all about bringing her home safe. We're angry. You're angry. I mean, any parent, anyone that looks at this case is angry that the system just didn't work the way it was supposed to. And it's not just Harmony. There are other kids as well that might be slipping through the cracks as we speak. And so that's why I'm insisting that we move quickly.
Yeah, you know, you're never going to prevent every tragedy, but, you know, you came to office in this era of trying to reform DCYF and hire a child advocate coming out of the Executive Council, wanting to pay attention to that, wanting to fix that. You know, Brielle Gage, Sadie Willott here in Manchester. Now you've got, you know, Harmony, and the outcome is unknown there. How many more of these things need to happen before we get, you know, some substantive real change where it doesn't happen again?
Oh, I think we've brought amazing change to the system. So let's talk bluntly. When I got into office, the average caseworker at DCYF had almost 90 cases that they had to deal with. We've gotten that down to 12 because we've hired up, we've put staff in, we got rid of all the old management team, we brought a whole new team in. We didn't have prevention services in the state. We actually have that now. We've done a lot to make sure that the system has evolved, and we keep ourselves to a very high standard. We had thousands of cases that weren't even being looked at. They were sitting on a desk somewhere just being summarily dismissed. We said that's not going to happen again. So the system in the past 4 years has fundamentally changed. This is a tragic case. It's a case that happened across borders, and it's it's a case where parts of the system clearly didn't work. And so, again, it's not just about casting blame. It's about digging down and finding out where there are gaps, where we can continually challenge ourselves to be better.
One of the problems we hear about a lot is DCYF pay. And obviously, you funded the positions, but, you know, Maine pays a little bit more, Massachusetts pays more, Vermont pays more. They can't recruit and retain as well or be competitive. Is that something that's going to be addressed, where you're going to bring those up to par? It
may be, but again, it's not just pay that affects recruitment. I mean, DCYF, these caseworker jobs are tough jobs. They can be gut-wrenching jobs. The number one issue why we weren't retaining is because the workload was so high. We're asking a single worker to manage 90 cases. That's unrealistic, and that means that kids are going to fall through the cracks. Folks are going to be overwhelmed. So getting that down to a manageable level, getting the right infrastructure in place so there's a feedback response from folks that are working those cases to management. And then obviously there's a pay issue as well. And again, those can all be addressed. But we've been able to create more positions, staff more positions, and take care of more kids at a much better rate than we ever have before. But I'm always challenging the system to be better.
Let's shift gears to the pandemic. Obviously, COVID-19, not in a great place right now. I think everybody's aware of that and the situations that are going on and the numbers that are there. I want to look ahead, though. You know, what about this time next year, 2023? I know you said we're living with COVID-19 for a while, but this can't be the new normal. This hospitals just slammed every winter, where it's like worse than a flu season, where you've got, you know, the whole system just stressed out. This can't happen every year, can it?
Well, we hope not, obviously. I mean, you know, we don't see another variant on the horizon, but there may be at some point. Who knows what's going to happen next week? And so my job is to plan for the long term, hoping that, come later this winter and maybe even this spring, we're really out of this. I mean, that is a possibility. That would be wonderful. But I got to plan for the long term, which means vaccinations and boosters and testing capacity. We've been designing our system since the fall to handle the winter surge. No other state has really done that, and that's why they're getting absolutely overwhelmed everywhere else in the country. Our system's at capacity, but we're not overwhelmed. The rest of the country is struggling just to find a test. We have more at-home test availability in New Hampshire than anywhere else. We have our walk-in sites to do vaccines and boosters. Today, you can walk in. You're not waiting, weeks in line or anything like that, like you see in other parts of the country. We are fast-tracking licensure to get more nurses onto the floors. We're expanding hospital capacity with how they do beds. All of this stuff was designed in the fall to go into action today, which is why we have very high numbers, but we're not collapsing like you see in other parts of the country. We're really sustaining, and we can manage through this without a doubt. What happens 2 months from now or 2 years from now is really kind of anybody's guess, but we're all hopeful that Omicron is the last we see of COVID.
President Biden has said it's the states that are going to solve this, and he specifically referenced you when he said that. You know, in this last week, he name drops you when talking about trying to fight the gridlock in Washington. You're clearly one of the governors he thinks about the most for some reason.
I don't know.
I'm not sure if that's a last name from the 80s that he remembers or something like that. Why is that? How are you in the president's head?
Yeah, I have no idea. I really don't. I didn't appreciate the president kind of used the comments I had made really back when I announced exactly why I wanted to be governor. I love this state. I love serving the constituents here. I can do that 100 times better in a more fulfilling way for our citizens as governor than I can as Senate. They just don't move the ball. And he kind of used that statement to kind of, really hit on, well, see, the Republican Party doesn't want to move. But the reminder to the president and the Democrat Party is when you're in charge, it's your responsibility to reach across the aisle and say, here's how we can find common ground, not to do things in an authoritarian way, not just blame the other side. That's the responsibility of being in the majority party, which the Democrats have in Washington now, and they're not fulfilling on that promise. Remember, I didn't support Joe Biden for president, to be sure, but a lot of folks in this country did vote for him because they figured, well, here's a moderate type of Democrat that has experience with the Senate, relationships across the aisle. He's a good guy to bring things together. We've seen none of it, absolutely zero. And so for him to kind of pivot, and I know he used something I had said back in an interview at some point with my frustrations with Washington, that isn't Republican. That's across the aisle. That's all 100 members of the Senate as far as I'm concerned, in that there's too much partisanship on both sides. And I think I'm just expressing the same frustrations everybody in America has. You got to move the ball forward. If we're going to elect you to a job, if we're going to hire you to a job, you have to live to a sense of accountability, standards, and results. I try to live to that in New Hampshire. I love doing it. I think we're getting a lot done here. We have for the past few years, and we want to keep doing that. But Washington has to have a bit of a reset. And look, if my words help inspire some bipartisanship, so be it. I think everyone in America wants that.
Speaking of the power of the majority, the congressional redistricting map, you said you don't love it. You said you don't think it's the one that ends up on your desk. But have you asked senators in the state Senate to change it?
Yes. Yeah, I've asked them. I mean, I haven't proposed a map per se, but I told them, look, it's legal, it's fine. My guess is we can probably do better. I think we can find something a little more balanced. You know, I know a lot of Democrats actually love that map because it really locks up CD2, and on the congressional side, the CD1 tends to be much more Republican. But, you know, we're a purple state. And you know, I think from a political standpoint, I think Republicans can definitely win in CD2. Why would you can see that? I think, you know, if you have a map like that, you're really locking folks in. I just think it could be better. So I've asked them to kind of go back, and I think a lot of senators are willing to do that. I don't think anyone loves that map. I don't think anyone says, boy, what a winner that map is. It's fine and it's legal, but I just think we can do better. So we've asked them to look at it, and I think they're trying hard.
What if they don't change it? If that proposed district ends up on your desk, are you vetoing it?
You know, I'd have to see what the other options are, right? My hope is that they'll come up with a couple other options, and we can kind of say, okay, what's the best option here, right? So even though you might not get the perfect map, that's virtually impossible with how the firm rules around how redistricting has to happen. I think I'd like to look at the other options and say, look, maybe we can try this, or maybe the other options aren't any better. I'm not sure, but I think they're doing their hardest to find out and see what else might be out there.
As we wrap up here, clearly you've been building a little bit more of a national profile lately with TV and speaking engagements. As you continue on this path, how do you balance being a small state governor, which requires a lot of humility, sometimes more than most politicians have, and then also sort of the, you know, by nature sort of self-centered work of promoting yourself, to make a Talladega Nights reference of Ricky Bobby, you got to get in your me car, you know, and drive that if you're going to have a national profile. So how do you do that while still staying in touch with, as you call it, the 603?
Yeah, look, in terms of the national stuff, I never ask to go on TV. Folks will ask me from the national media to come on, and I'm happy to give them 15 minutes. It's nothing that we're driving towards by any means. New Hampshire's my first priority. That's exactly why I said I didn't want to run for the U.S. Senate. I can serve my constituents better here. I love being governor. I think how we do things in a very local, one-on-one, individual, you know, priding the individual, being the freest state in the country, a fiscally responsible state, all that stuff. I love that stuff. So if folks want to keep asking me to go on national TV, I suppose it's 15 minutes out of my week. We're not trying to build a national profile or anything.
You're not? I mean, it seems like it. No,
because it's not really driven by us. It's not really driven by me. If folks want to ask me to come on, I think there was a lot of that because folks wanted me to run for the U.S. Senate. I think there's some residual there possibly. But I made my choice, and I couldn't be more thrilled with the idea of staying here in New Hampshire, in the state as a governor, not as someone on the national level that just, you know, spouts off and argues back and forth. Really get stuff done. I love it. I love what I do, and I think at the end of the day, to answer your question, it's about results. I have to keep delivering results for the state, and I think we've done a phenomenal job so far. But you don't take your foot off the gas. You keep focusing on what matters, keep listening to folks, keep making things happen.
All right, Governor Chris Sununu, thanks for joining us on Close Up. We'll do the distanced handshake here, and hopefully maybe we'll be closer the next time we do this.
You bet.